Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to continue building what we know today as the United States of America. But today we're going to look at some constitutional conflicts, some issues that arose in trying to ratify the document that we know as the Constitution, which helps shape the U.S. government. And so let's review where we were prior to this. All right. So just a little review. So in context, so what we had before, we had the Articles of Confederation. Right? We had the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation led to rebellions. Shays, Whiskey Rebellion. Okay? So that led to the Constitutional Convention. Okay? At the Constitutional Convention, you had two plans. You had the Virginia Plan and you had the New Jersey Plan. Well, both sides couldn't agree, so they had to come together. They had to meet in the middle in a compromise. So that led to the Great Compromise. Plus the 3/5 Compromise. Now, does that equal Constitution? Not so fast. In the words of Lee Corso. If you don't know who Lee Corso is, he's a college football analyst. But not so fast. So we see the timeline. We have the Articles of Confederation, which didn't work. We saw that through the multiple rebellions that took place and how long it took federal governments to respond. So that leads to the Constitutional Convention, where you get two different plans. You get the Virginia plan, you get the New Jersey plan. Those two sides can't agree with one another, so they have to meet in the middle. The Great and the 3/5 Compromise emerge, and now does that lead to a constitution? Well, you have two sides to this argument. You have the Federalists and you have the Anti-Federalists. So, the Federalists first. The Federalists believed in federalism. Which is shared power between the states and the national government. Okay? So they believe that the federal government did need more power, but that power could be shared through federalism between the two sides. And the Anti-Federalists which I'm sure you can piece together from the name, were against the Federalists. They were afraid were afraid that the national government would have too much power. And this is all tied to their fear of a president becoming a king. But these weren't the only two disagreements that these sides had. So the Federalists opposed having a Bill of Rights. They opposed having a Bill of Rights, but the Anti-Federalists wanted a Bill of Rights. They wanted a Bill of Rights to guarantee individual rights. This was kind of their way of trying to make sure the national government did not have too much power. This Bill of Rights would guarantee individual rights to the people, therefore kind of making sure president doesn't become king. The Federalists supported a national army. Meanwhile, the Anti-Federalists wanted local militias. The Federalists wanted the national government to have the power to put together a military that was standing and always ready to go. The Anti-Federalists wanted the state to have the power to control their own militias. And we'll talk about it when we get there. You kind of today have a combination of the two. There is a national army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, but you also have local state armies, those being your national guards. You have the Army National Guard and the Air Force National Guard, Coast Guard, etc. So there's kind of both today. But that was one of their disagreements as well. The Federalists wanted an industrial economy. So they wanted to move forward with this idea of factories and production and producing more goods. But the Anti-Federalists wanted a more agricultural base. And so the argument between these two sides kind of leads to some content because there are some major names on each side. You had people that helped write the Declaration of Independence on both sides. You had the Federalists, which were you had James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, who is famous because of the play. So yes, that play, Hamilton, is based on true events. And then you had Anti-Federalists that were led by Patrick Henry, and Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson being an anti-federalist is ironic, and you'll see when we get to Jefferson's presidency. But what you see here with these two emerging groups is this constitutional conflict and the potential emergence of political parties. Um, we'll see how we get to that point. First, we're going to create the Constitution. You're going to see how these two sides are able to come together to create the document that we call the Constitution. But you had the review, you had the two compromises. You thought maybe that was going to be enough for the Constitution to take shape, but it was not. There were still some other things that needed to be ironed out. You had some major names involved, with Madison, who would become president, Alexander Hamilton, who was in various cabinets, Patrick Henry, key voice of the Revolution, Thomas Jefferson, who also becomes president, penned the Declaration of Independence. So very important. The Anti-Federalists were really just afraid of a king taking place and them losing all of these things they fought for during the American Revolution. The Federalists tried to, they kind of pushed the idea of federalism. The power is shared between the national government and the state government. Neither one has sole control. They have to work together. But the Anti-Federalists were not so sure. They wanted these checks put in place to help be sure that a king would never emerge and that these revolutionary things that they fought for remained. But moving forward, we're going to see how these two sides come together. But you do have an assignment to do today. If you have any issues, questions, comments, concerns, things you want to talk about, be sure that you reach out to me and let me know. And as always, have a great day.